My sister-in-law, consumed by jealousy, attempted to harm me at my husband's party following our pregnancy announcement. Jealous Vanessa attempted to undermine me at my husband's party after we shared the news of my pregnancy. However, it has turned disastrous, and now she is confronting the possibility of jail time while simultaneously going through a divorce. I, a 29-year-old woman, have been married to my husband William for the last 7 years. I cherish our marriage deeply, yet I find it challenging to overlook the influence of his sister, Kayla, who seems to bring a cloud of negativity into our lives. Initially, I had a deep fondness for Kayla when we first met, but as time has passed, my perspective has shifted significantly. She exudes a profound negativity, employing manipulation and fostering a toxic atmosphere. For years, I have put in the effort to steer clear of her bad side, fully aware of the type of person she can be. Previously, my husband had a relationship with Vanessa's best friend at the age of 17. But they eventually parted ways as he felt compelled to stay with her due to Vanessa's influence. Upon reaching the age of 23 and embracing his single status, his sister was adamant that he should pair up with her other friend. Yet he declined the suggestion. After a significant argument, she found herself in tears as she approached their parents, expressing her desire for him to marry someone she felt at ease with. Yet his parents seemed indifferent to her concerns. When my husband and I first crossed paths and our hearts intertwined, his parents offered their unwavering support. Yet Vanessa had persistently regarded me with an icy disposition. Every time I was present, she would inexplicably mention William's former partners, highlighting their successes and suggesting he reconnect with them. This continued for some time, and I wasn't alone in finding it strange. William also thought it was odd, prompting him to request that she refrain from constantly mentioning his exes. Vanessa would then become infuriated and begin to mock me about my jealousy, insisting that he shouldn't be with someone as insecure as I was. Whenever his parents called us for dinner, Vanessa would intentionally invite one of William's exes, casually mentioning how she had coincidentally run into them that day and felt obliged to invite them for dinner out of courtesy. She persistently monitors my Instagram, despite not being one of my followers. I've observed that she is always the first to view my story on my public account. If a guy comments on my photo, she would then go to her brother and express her concerns about how I was sharing inappropriate pictures of myself. William and I would genuinely find amusement in her accusations. When William and I made the decision to move in together, she encouraged him to end our relationship, claiming that I had numerous flaws and that she could easily find someone far superior to me. This remark genuinely wounded me, especially since I had always treated her with kindness throughout our interactions. Regrettably, the moment William and I became engaged, Vanessa's treatment of me deteriorated even further. Upon the announcement of our engagement, a wave of congratulations flooded in from everyone around us. Kayla's silence caught my attention, and then, to everyone's astonishment, she rose from her chair and exited the party. Later, she called William in tears, her voice filled with anguish as she expressed her frustration about learning the news alongside everyone else. She believed that, given their closeness, she should have been the first to hear about his engagement. Later, she sent me a message that felt nearly threatening, insisting that I should be a good wife to her brother, as she had always been the sole woman in his life. The message was so strange that I nearly recoiled in discomfort. I chose not to respond to her and left her message on read, fully aware that it likely frustrated her even more. Vanessa began to slowly overlook my presence whenever I was around. Yet, for some inexplicable reason, she continued to participate in all the wedding events, such as when I went dress shopping and during my bridal shower. She elevated her critique of the wedding, candidly voicing her dissatisfaction with my decisions, even though my future mother-in-law and fiancé addressed her actions repeatedly. She continued to behave that way. One day, as I was engaged in a conversation about the centerpiece with my future mother-in-law, Kayla caught wind of it and instantly started to ridicule me, claiming that my choice lacked sophistication and that this was precisely why she wished her brother would marry someone of higher caliber. That moment pushed me over the edge, and I couldn't hold it together anymore. I shouted at her, expressing my inability to endure her relentless taunts and criticisms any further. And I firmly communicated that she was no longer welcome at our wedding. Kayla stood there, her breath caught in her throat, utterly astonished, as if the very idea of me confronting her had never crossed her mind. Even my mother-in-law was outraged with her and stood by my side. Later, Kayla contacted William, expressing her frustration about how I had embarrassed her and insisting that he needed to manage my behavior since I was set to become his wife. William asserted with conviction that he supported my choice and made it clear that without an apology from her, she would not receive an invitation to the wedding. With a hint of reluctance, she offered me a sincere apology, one that I noticed but chose to leave unanswered once more. Amidst the whirlwind of my wedding preparations, I found myself utterly drained and had no desire to engage in her drama. Ultimately, she attended our wedding because I wanted to avoid any negative remarks from her in the future. My wedding embraced a delightful theme of pink hues and pastels, effortlessly captured by everyone, including the guests. However, Vanessa appeared in a black floor-length gown with a veil, reminiscent of someone attending a funeral. Our astonishment knew no bounds. Vanessa circulated among her acquaintances, expressing her sorrow over the loss of her brother to another woman. At the reception, my husband noticed my discomfort with Vanessa's wedding outfit and addressed it directly with her. She attempted to portray herself as the victim, claiming her right to wear whatever she pleased and accusing me of being overly controlling. Ultimately, Rose and Robert requested her to depart when she persisted in causing a disturbance. That experience was deeply embarrassing, and since that moment, I have kept my distance from her. Upon the arrival of my son Caleb, I was resolute in keeping Vanessa at a distance from our newborn. She made an effort to resist, but my husband and his parents were firmly on my side. They completely grasped my reasons for not wanting Vanessa around my baby and honored my choice. 2 years ago, Vanessa experienced a miscarriage with her then-boyfriend Matthew, and it shattered her completely. It was truly a sorrowful period for all. William and I experienced a sense of sorrow for her, especially since we were already parents. After her miscarriage, we chose to embrace a more forgiving perspective. We would welcome her to our home to foster a connection with our son Caleb. It's quite remarkable how sweet she has been to our son, especially considering her behavior towards me. At first, it appeared that she had transformed. Yet as time passed, she reverted to her former self. She constantly laments the hardships of her life, expressing how nothing ever seems to go her way, attributing her misfortunes to former bosses or friends who she believes have derailed her path. As time has passed, I've observed that in her mind, she is always right. She seldom acknowledges her role in disputes and consistently seeks to garner sympathy by portraying herself as the victim. This year, she made the choice to tie the knot and extended invitations to everyone but us. William was taken aback to discover that we had not received an invitation, especially since our relationship appeared to be improving. When we inquired about it, she began to express her concerns about my presence, suggesting that I might overshadow her wedding. I reached out to her to inquire why she would believe something like that, especially since I have never wronged her in any way. Kayla began to express her concerns about having intentionally chosen an all-black outfit for our wedding, fearing that I might follow suit. This, she explained, was the reason she didn't want me to attend our wedding. I was livid about her manipulative behavior and directly confronted my husband about it. William had a conversation with his parents, and they reached the conclusion that they would not finance the wedding nor be present for it. This brought Vanessa to tears, and she began to hold me responsible for the chaos that ensued. My husband told her that she had openly acknowledged her own mistake, so she had no grounds to accuse me. However, Kayla defended her behavior by claiming that our wedding was a long time ago and that I should simply move on. Eventually, as Robert and Rose continued to decline payment for her wedding, she contacted me to express her remorse and pleaded for my forgiveness. It's hard to acknowledge, but Kayla has a way of being incredibly charming and convincing when she desires something. I let go of the past and sought to embrace a fresh start with her. The wedding between her and Matthew unfolded beautifully. Everyone was present, and we enjoyed ourselves thoroughly. Less than 6 months later, Kayla stood at our doorstep, expressing her frustrations about her crumbling marriage. William and I welcomed her into our home for a few days, allowing her to express her frustrations about her husband for hours on end. They appeared to be facing challenges in their journey to conceive, and it was evident that Kayla was placing the blame squarely on Matthew's shoulders. I attempted to engage Kayla in conversation, Yet she remained resolute in placing all the blame on her husband. When she wasn't voicing her grievances about her husband, she would become intensely fixated on our lives, fabricating scenarios that had no basis in reality. I typically visit the gym each morning prior to heading to work. Occasionally, when time slips away from me, I bring along my work clothes to complete my workout, freshen up, and transition into my professional attire. Vanessa had been observing this for a while and would frequently inquire about it, asking questions such as why I was taking a bath or what prompted me to go to the gym. I hadn't given it much thought, but I found myself sharing how I enjoyed keeping my weight in check and how I preferred not to arrive at the office all sweaty. She would press her lips together and give a slight nod. In time, the situation with Matthew improved, and she returned to living with him. One weekend, my husband and I enjoyed a lunch with Rose and Robert. Vanessa and Matthew received invitations as well. We entrusted our son Caleb to a babysitter, as he often found himself bored during our lengthy adult conversations and preferred to remain at home to play. During lunch, Rose shared with us the story of one of her friends who is currently navigating the challenges of divorce. She shared the story of her friend's husband who betrayed her, leading her to walk away and claim half of his assets. Vanessa abruptly cut in to inquire whether my husband and I had signed a prenup prior to our marriage. We paused our meal to gaze at her. She completely ignored my presence and gazed at my husband with anticipation. My husband is quite direct, so he told her plainly that since we both earn a good income, we saw no need for a prenup. Vanessa scoffed and began to express his thoughts on the prevalence of cheaters in today's world, lamenting that he could easily be caught off guard at any moment. I felt offended by her words and requested that she clarify what she was implying. Vanessa then remarked that I was clearly meeting up with someone, given that I always had a change of clothes on hand, and that person was William's sister. She felt compelled to alert her brother. Hearing those words left me utterly stunned. Robert and Rose swiftly intervened, urging her to cease fabricating such stories and reminding her to keep her nose out of other people's affairs. Vanessa seamlessly continued, expressing that her intention was solely to support her brother, and then playfully suggested that perhaps our son Caleb wasn't really William's son, given that he didn't quite resemble him. I could see the flush of anger creeping across my husband's face. I've never witnessed him this furious in my entire existence. He gazed into Kayla's eyes, delivering the harsh truth. This was the reason she had yet to become a mother. She simply didn't deserve that title, and her child was far better off in heaven than in the care of someone like her. Kayla's mouth fell open in disbelief. Rose and Robert remained silent, watching as my husband unleashed his frustrations on Kayla, accusing her of being a shameless individual intent on sabotaging everything. He claimed she had nothing worthwhile in her life and labeled her a loser, emphasizing how she spent her days idly while he toiled away at work. He went on to express that rather than casting blame on me and inquiring about prenups, she ought to focus on her own marriage, as it was evident she was projecting her issues. Kayla was overwhelmed with emotion and began to cry uncontrollably. She glanced at Matthew, who sat beside her, ready to offer support, yet he remained silent. I have never witnessed my husband unravel like this. Ultimately, she rose from her seat and hurried into the washroom. My husband was seething with anger. Rose approached to soothe my husband while I gently massaged his hand. He expressed his regret for what his sister had said about our son, and I nodded in understanding, fully aware of the frustration she could bring. I felt a sense of relief when my husband defended me so openly, especially after enduring so much from Kayla over the years. Once he regained his composure, he offered an apology to Matthew while completely overlooking Kayla. Following lunch that day, we returned to a state of silence with Kayla. Her behavior impacted not just me, but also my husband. We have taken the step to block her from all channels to ensure she cannot contact us. Rose and Robert discussed the lunch with us and concurred that Kayla had indeed crossed a line this time. Their typically composed son was now unraveling, clearly affected by Kayla's relentless prodding. A year has passed since we last spoke with her, and everything has been progressing seamlessly. 2 months ago, I discovered that I was expecting a child. This comes as a total surprise, especially since we weren't even making an effort. My husband and I are overjoyed to embrace the arrival of another family member. We chose to wait for the perfect moment to share the news. ultimately deciding to unveil it on my husband's birthday. Rose and Robert decided to honor William with a grand celebration in their backyard. We extended invitations to our dear family and friends. Vanessa likely caught wind of this from others and chose to make an appearance. My husband and I were taken aback by her unexpected appearance. Vanessa approached William and wrapped her arms around him, expressing how deeply she had missed him and how regretful she felt about their previous conversation. My husband grasped my hand and informed his sister that it was she who owed me an apology for casting aspersions on my character. Vanessa nodded, turned to me, and offered an apology. She shared with me her journey through therapy over the past few months and how it had led her to understand the wrongness of humiliating me in that way. I found it hard to accept anything she was saying, yet I refrained from being impolite in front of the crowd, so I merely nodded in response. Rose and Robert reached out to us, expressing their surprise at her arrival. They reassured us that if we felt uncomfortable, they would ask her to leave, considering it was a celebration for my husband. However, William preferred to avoid any confrontation, so we decided to let it slide. During the party, I noticed Vanessa laughing and engaging with everyone, which struck me as somewhat unusual. She appeared overly optimistic, a stark contrast to her usual demeanor. However, she had brought up the idea of attending therapy, so I felt it was important to extend her some understanding. As the moment arrived to slice the cake, William delivered a touching speech, expressing how he felt like the luckiest man alive, thankful for another year with a wife like me. His words filled me with a warm, joyful blush. I found myself reflecting on the enduring love my husband and I share, reminiscent of the feelings we had when we first began our journey together all those years ago. William and I chose to reveal some thrilling news to everyone. With smiles lighting up our faces, we shared the joyful news of our impending arrival, and everyone paused for a moment to absorb the excitement before bursting into expressions of happiness. My mother began to weep and approached me for an embrace. Rose and Robert were overcome with emotion, tears streaming down their faces as they offered heartfelt congratulations to both me and William. Everyone expressed their joy for us and eagerly inquired if we had thought of any baby names. The only standout that drew attention was Vanessa. She gazed at us in disbelief. I initially believed she needed some time to sort through her thoughts. But then her demeanor shifted, and she simply turned away from us, visibly upset. I felt a twinge of concern about whether she would spoil yet another celebration for us. But my attention was soon diverted by others approaching to engage in conversation. As lunch approached, I rose to assist my in-laws in bringing out the food. But Rick and my parents insisted I stay seated, insisting that I shouldn't lift a finger during this moment. I sat in my seat, patiently awaiting my husband's arrival with a plate, when Vanessa approached me, radiating joy, with a plate of food in her hands. She approached me, her voice ringing out as she declared her joy over my pregnancy and her desire to personally serve me this meal. As she passed me the plate, she remarked on her desire to make amends for all the times she had been unkind to me before. I acknowledged and accepted with gratitude. She turned and walked away. Just as I was ready to indulge, I was pleasantly surprised to see that she had placed shrimp on my plate. My family is well aware of my severe allergy to shrimp, so I was taken aback when Vanessa actually served it to me. With a heavy heart, I shook my head in disappointment and rose to fetch my own food. In that instant, Matthew approached to offer her congratulations on my pregnancy. We engaged in conversation, and he inquired about my lack of appetite. I noted that Vanessa had likely served me shrimp by accident, and Matthew reassured me not to fret. Taking the plate from my hands, he mentioned that he could take this plate because he enjoyed eating shrimps, and I could find a new plate for myself. I offered a smile, gave a nod, and turned to leave. Just a mere 5 minutes passed before Matthew began to heave and vomit onto the plate. All eyes turned to him, a hush falling over the table as he struggled to rise from his chair. William and Kayla hurried towards him, worry etched on their faces. Matthew gestured towards his plate and then indicated his throat. Our eyes widened in disbelief as we realized that something was unmistakably amiss with him due to his choice of food. Matthew suddenly collapsed, eliciting gasps of shock and concern from the crowd. Kayla hurried to inspect his plate, her eyes widening in disbelief. She glanced my way and inquired whether I had handed my plate to her husband, to which I nodded in response. Amidst the turmoil, a voice rang out, summoning an ambulance, and he was swiftly transported to the hospital. Kayla was weeping fiercely throughout it all, her eyes darting toward me with a flash of anger. It was later revealed to us that Matthew had fallen victim to poisoning. I felt a wave of dizziness wash over me when I learned this. Fully aware that the plate was intended for me, unlike anyone else, the same poison that affected Matthew could have easily harmed me and my baby. William, Rose, Robert, and my parents remained blissfully unaware of this for the moment. The authorities were summoned to collect the food he consumed as evidence, as there was no understanding of what ingredients might have led to his sudden fainting. As I type these words, Matthew remains in the hospital, recovering, while Kayla has chosen to stay with him overnight. My husband and I have been fielding calls from relatives asking about what transpired with Matthew and who might have been responsible for poisoning him. Rose and Robert are quite unsettled by the recent events and have decided to stay at our place, as they feel uneasy about returning home. Suddenly, amidst the smooth flow of events, an unexpected turn left everyone in the dark about what transpired. I feel an overwhelming fear about revealing that the plate was once mine and that Kayla had brought it to me. If this escalates into an investigation, I will need to be honest with the authorities. I am overwhelmed with guilt regarding the situation, but my primary concern now is the potential actions of Vanessa, who seems unrestrained in her intentions to harm me. I have no desire to be in her presence, nor can I allow my children to be near her. Ida for handing my plate to Matthew and for possibly endangering my bill? Update 1. Wow. I am truly grateful for the thousands of comments on this post in just a few hours. I never envisioned receiving such a multitude of responses. My hands trembled as I typed this earlier, and sleep has eluded me since. Regardless of the opinions circulating, I can't shake the feeling that I bear some responsibility for what happened with Bill. I should have simply tossed the plate, yet I can't quite grasp why I allowed him to take it from me. I find myself in tears, consumed by the fear of what might happen to him. My husband senses that something is amiss and has been lingering close by. He believes I am merely anxious, completely unaware of what I know regarding his sister. I concur with the observations that it's essential for me to take the time to engage in a calm discussion with everyone. I understand that it might be hard for some to accept, but Rose and Robert have indeed installed security cameras throughout their home. Given that the birthday party took place in their backyard, I'm confident they can review the footage to confirm that it was Kayla who handed me that plate. I will engage with everyone tonight and then provide an update. Update 2. We had a conversation, and I feel incredibly thankful to have such wonderful in-laws in my life. With Rose and Robert already staying over, I gathered with them and William at dinner to share that I had something significant to discuss. With a deep breath, I began, feeling the burden of the situation pressing down on me. As the group assembled, I shared the tale of the birthday celebration, detailing how Vanessa had presented me with a plate of shrimp, and how Matthew had inadvertently consumed it, leading to his unfortunate Caleb poisoning. Their faces reflected the shock and disbelief that I felt within myself as I spoke. Rose and Robert shared a worried look, their unease palpable, as William's face transformed from bewilderment to fury. I pressed on, voicing my concerns regarding Vanessa's intentions and her past efforts to bring me harm. I expressed my reluctance to disclose this information, worried about the possible repercussions for both myself and our unborn child. Rose, with her practical mindset, promptly proposed reviewing the security camera footage. Robert acknowledged the gravity of the situation with a nod of agreement. William, despite his evident distress, chose to stay quiet, taking in the startling news. Upon examining the security footage from their camera app, the reality became unmistakable. The video captured Vanessa presenting me with the tainted dish, followed by the unfolding moments that led to Matthew's turmoil. The evidence was so compelling that doubt was simply not an option. Feelings surged intensely as the truth became apparent. William, now acutely aware of his sister's malevolent intentions, fought to rein in his fury. Rose and Robert were taken aback by their daughter's behavior, astonished by the extremes she had reached to instigate turmoil. We remained in a state of shock, grappling with the bewildering reasons behind her actions. Following this revelation, my in-laws have chosen to present this evidence to the police. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, Robert and my husband will meet with Matthew once he recovers, as he is the one who needs to press charges against Vanessa. I am completely at a loss regarding Matthew's potential reaction. And the thought of how I let him poison my plate brings me to the brink of tears each time it crosses my mind. I find myself unable to sleep or eat properly, consumed by worry for him. I will keep you informed when something noteworthy occurs. Update 3. Alright, everyone, I'm finally here with some news. It has been a month since my last update, and I am currently navigating a significant journey as a pregnant woman. Initially, my in-laws provided the recording to the police, and upon reviewing the evidence, she was taken into custody. Kayla didn't bother to refute the accusations, she instantly broke down in tears. Confessing to it all, my husband spoke with Matthew regarding the incident, and Matthew was just as taken aback as the rest of us. My husband encouraged him to take legal action against his sister, emphasizing how malevolent her actions were. He reassured him that no matter what decision he made, he would always remain a member of our family. Ultimately, once Matthew had healed, he made the decision to pursue legal action and also initiated divorce proceedings. Kayla reached out to Rose and Robert, her voice trembling with tears as she pleaded for their forgiveness. It appears that Kayla is, in fact, expecting a child herself. She pleaded with them to rescue her, attempting to sway them by emphasizing the importance of their grandchild in this situation. Robert decisively informed her that the time for indulgence had passed, and it was now essential for her to embrace accountability for her own choices. Rose feels a profound sadness regarding her daughter's situation, yet she recognizes that Kayla's actions cannot simply be overlooked. The police discovered evidence of her tampering with the food, with the intention of causing me harm, but it ultimately backfired, resulting in her husband being hurt instead. She faces several charges for tampering with food, endangering lives, and causing harm. She pleaded with Matthew to refrain from charging her, insisting that it was all her fault. However, Matthew remains resolute, his determination to punish her unwavering. The commencement of her court hearing is imminent. I doubt she will find a way out this time. In response to those inquiring, my son and I are managing just fine. He remains completely unaware of his aunt's actions. William and I have discussed it, and we intend to sit down with him to share the truth, as we believe it's important for our son to understand and be aware of these situations. I understand that this conversation with the little one will be challenging, yet it is essential. I am attending regular ultrasound scans every 2 weeks for my pregnancy. As my doctor has advised, we have decided not to discover the baby's gender, as we prefer to embrace the element of surprise. My parents are aware of the situation with Kayla and have taken on a very protective stance towards me. They express concern that this might impact my mental health during the pregnancy, so they are urging me to seek therapy. I find myself in agreement with them, even though I try to act normally. A profound fear has taken root within me after Kayla's actions with my food. Now, I feel apprehensive about consuming any outside food or anything that I haven't personally prepared. My husband recognizes my fear and supports me at every turn, so I hope to overcome this irrational fear in the near future. It's been 8 months since my last update. Kayla is presently incarcerated. She was convicted of the charges. I never went to her court proceedings, but occasionally my in-laws did, and they shared with me that Kayla confessed in court to feeling jealous of me for years, as she never wanted anyone from outside the family to marry her brother. She had always envisioned one of her closest friends tying the knot with my husband, which is why, when he began dating me, she would constantly attempt to intimidate me. When we shared the news of our pregnancy at my husband's birthday party, she was overcome with jealousy as she was on the verge of revealing her own pregnancy too. Having experienced a miscarriage before, she was eager to share her good news, yet felt that we had overshadowed her moment to celebrate. She claimed that her pregnancy hormones made her so angry that she added a small amount of rat poison to my food. She confessed that her desire was for me to end up in the hospital. Yet she never intended to cause physical harm to either me or the baby. She recounted her surprise at my decision to offer my plate to her husband, claiming that I had essentially poisoned him, which she believed justified her plea for a lighter sentence. The judge dismissed her pleas, and she received a prison sentence, meaning she will be absent from our lives for an extended period. Matthew has successfully finalized her divorce, granting him the freedom he sought. Throughout the months, we have come to know him, and we make it a point to involve him in our family activities whenever possible. We have had a conversation, and I expressed my sincere apologies for giving him my plate. He reassured me that it was never my fault. Upon hearing that, tears began to flow as I found myself trapped in a loop of thoughts, endlessly wishing I could have altered the course of events to prevent his poisoning. I'm relieved to hear that Matthew is doing well now. William and I are thrilled to announce the arrival of our baby girl into our family. Even with the echoes of yesterday still around us, our daughter has infused our lives with a comforting glow and joy. Caleb is overjoyed at the prospect of becoming a big brother, lavishing his little sister with affection and love. Seeing our children connect brings a deep sense of appreciation to our hearts. During this time, my parents and in-laws have supported us as we navigate this new chapter in our lives.